Shahana, this is amazing to have you on Filme Shilmy. I think this is what, after 4 years, we're having our conversation. I think the last time we spoke was for Tu Hai Mera Sunday's premiere at BFI. How have you been and how have things been since then?
Well, great. Thank you for firstly having me, Anuj. And yeah, it's been 4 years. Time really goes by quickly. But yeah, life has been kind of all kinds of things. I mean, I was living in Paris for a bit. Now I'm back in India, done a whole bunch of work. So yeah, it's been quite exciting actually.
Right. I mean, a huge congratulations on A Suitable Boy. It's wonderful to see in the series. The fact that you've played book characters before in works like Midnight's Children, how if at all does this experience help you in other screen adaptations such as A Suitable Boy?
I think the material itself is rich enough, and I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't have the time to read the book, and I've read bits and pieces when we were filming, which were related to the character, and with the help of some of the co-actors, my friend Vivek Gombar, who plays Arun Mehra. So we did a lot of readings of bits and pieces to kind of get a sense of the thing. But I think Meenakshi is one of the kind of more famous characters of the book, and but your question is more general. I think it's the book. There's always a sense of a character when there's a character that's written out of a literary piece of work. There's so much discussion, debate, and hypothesizing around them that there's enough material to play with. But above all, I think it's just a kind of sense of relating to some aspects of their journey, of their struggles, of their whatever it is. In this case, I have to say, with Meenakshi in A Suitable Boy, I have absolutely nothing to relate to her with, except for the fact that she's Bengali. And it was delightful to kind of play a completely different kind of character that has so little in common with me.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely vouch for the fact that she's a very Rangeen character. I mean, I've not read the book but from the episodes that we've seen so far. I mean, it's quite wonderful to kind of see her exploring her sexuality a little bit as well. She embraces herself, quite a lot. And I think obviously the whole adultery part of it obviously is something which is a bit questionable, but it's quite interesting. She's a very like free-spirited character, right? So I'm sure you probably resonate with that whole free-spirited aspect to it as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think she's somebody who's clearly a part of the lot of people who are probably ahead of their times. But I also think that era and that time, there were a lot of people who were like that, because it was just post, barely 10 years, not even 10 years actually, a few years into independence. And there was such there was so much of the British influence that was still there. People who'd studied abroad, been abroad. There was a lot more continental European influence that was there in India at that time. So I think people like her in that society of Calcutta, elite Calcutta, they existed. It was quite common, perhaps not common, but they did exist. She was not an anomaly.
Yes, absolutely, indeed. But I think just speaking about you said you've only read parts of the book and stuff like that, and you were talking a bit about your experience of playing book characters in general as well. But I think an extension of that question as well, I don't think it's ever easy to play a textual character because of the fact that there's an absence of a real reference point. So what guidance besides the book did you receive to prepare for Meenakshi?
So, well, one was, of course, the diction. We had to work on the diction because back then there was a certain way people spoke. I mean, Meenakshi specifically coming from a very erudite, upper-class Calcutta family. There's a kind of clipped British kind of way in which they speak, and there's and the, so there was a little bit of diction work that we had to do with the character. And I think other than that, it was actually quite going with the flow. I think I had sent a self-tape to Mira, and she had liked that. And even the first day of shooting, it was kind of, they were in the middle of a very crazy day of shooting, and we came at the end, and there was one scene we were going to do, and that was my first scene. And we literally just came in, started shooting, and somehow the tone and the rhythm of that character got set. And I think it was much more instinctive and spontaneous. But
Yeah.
for me, I think it was more like going into almost subconscious memory of people like this that I have heard of and known of through my parents and through that, because my parents are Bengali and from Calcutta. So
Mm.
I have heard of and have a sense of that variety of Calcutta of that time. So I think I kind of just went in for that, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I think there's a lot in the book itself. I mean, in the book and the script, in terms of a description of Meenakshi at great length. So that also helped.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. I mean, I think that's very interesting to hear as well. And I think, yeah, the English diction is very different to the sort of English I speak. It's definitely a lot more, mine is more the toporified version of English than in comparison. In comparison to the sort of diction that you have in the series. But I think in addition to Vivek, I mean, Vivek is an amazing talent. I've seen him in Sir, and I think it's wonderful to see him play this rather he really seeks validation from the Britishers, which is quite reminiscent of the sort of behaviors we see today as well to a certain extent. I really like that whole post-colonial hangover as well. So I mean, I'm sure you must have kind of been able to kind of understand that whole post-colonial attitudes and behaviors as well, right?
Right, right. And I think that, like I said, I mean, even Meenakshi's character, her brother, is a poet and lives, has done book tours in London and kind of has been living there. Clearly, I mean, you haven't seen Mr. Chatterjee yet, but you will discover that he is also somebody who's obviously, he's a lawyer, is very revered, very well read. So, that whole milieu was like we were discussing, a certain milieu that existed in that time. And Arun Mehra, for one, is somebody who's kind of the first, perhaps, of his lot who has who has that kind of slightly upper class status, right? So whereas his wife, on the other hand, was born into that, right? So for him, the rest of his family is much more middle class, so to speak, but he constantly feels that need to probably prove and himself to be of that class, and often even like disconnect himself from his family and be condescending towards his family, his brother, for
Mm.
being not so up to the mark, so
Yeah, I'm loving the way we're getting little glimpses of Meenakshi through this conversation that we're having, and I'm loving that. Please do maintain that. I think it would be great to kind of have that.
absolutely.
But I think in addition to Vivek Bomber, it's quite wonderful to see you reunite with Randeep Hooda. I think after a hiatus since Rubaru actually. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's been a while. So what was it like to kind of reunite with him? I think we saw that scene actually, that little steamy scene between you and him, where you're kind of saying like, "Oh yeah, my husband won't really know about our affair because he's a bit
Yeah.
gullible." So what's it like being reunited with Randeep for the series?
Well, he was kind of my first ever romantic co-star, really. So
Yes.
very, very early on in my career, and we shot for that group for a long period of time. So clearly, we had a very good working equation, and there's a great sense of comfort, and that was very much still there. So it helped hugely to have him, especially for scenes that were a little more racy, because I have a great deal of comfort with him.
Yeah.
Not that we had much that was racy in Rugru, but there was an intimacy in there, and there was a comfort. So this was just going a step further, which didn't feel so awkward to start with. Even basic things like I've kissed him before on screen, so
Yeah.
it helps to not feel so awkward or feel not conscious with your body. Not that I am in any case, but I
Sure.
think the chemistry was really nice for us to take it forward in this, where there was so little time to kind of create that. But we dive straight in and show that these people clearly have this chemistry that's been going on for a while.
Ah.
So it was nice
Right.
to be able to lean on the chemistry that was developed years ago and still be able to kind of tap into that.
Indeed, yes, and I think it just helps because you're not exploring unknown territory.
The other
For
thing that
sure.
actually helped was we did tango classes together, and because of the little sequence that we had to do, not too much got seen in the one that we did with him, but we did do specific classes and a little bit of choreography for that, and that definitely also helped kind of bring that chemistry back, because You're doing that kind of a sensual dance. You're learning something new. You're partnering up. So that was also helpful.
Absolutely, yes. That's incredible. But I think what makes me very excited about A Suitable Boy, more than it being a BBC One series or being an international project, so to speak, I think it's just the fact that it reunites such amazing talents on screen. Like there's you, there's Namit, Tanya, who's a fantastic discovery, I think. I think she's probably one of the best discoveries. Rasika, Ishan Tabu. I think it's just such a great celebration of artists. But I think besides the whole exposure aspect, of it being an international series, what is the importance of being associated with such projects like A Suitable Boy and Midnight's Children?
Well, to start with, I think with both those projects that you named, I've ticked off two dream directors that I wanted to work with, and for me, it's amazing that I've managed to work with the both of them, and it has really been something that's been a huge dream for me. And the secondary part being that it's also been a way to collaborate with these two stalwart authors and have that kind of interaction with them also to whatever extent. So, we had much more interaction with Salman also because we did a lot of the promotion work. When we went to Toronto, we had a lot of good times together, and it was wonderful getting to know him. He's still a friend. And it was lovely to spend, I only got to spend one evening with Vikram, but we had a rather languid and long evening and night, which was great fun. And to be able to, just be able to interpret something of theirs or adapt, or interpret the characters and lives that they have created, and to even try to be able to do some amount of justice to it feels like a kind of double tick in terms of pleasing four directors of some kind. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a sense of feeling like you've done right by the people that created that character as well, along with the creative spearheads in this case Mira, and in Midnight's Children Deepa. So
Sure.
So I think for me it's huge just to be able to have that kind of collaboration with these people that I've greatly admired, and I think it's both experiences pushed me to become better and discover more aspects of myself as an actor. And this one specifically, of course, I'm much older and I'm, life, you've lived that much more life as well. But this has been even more so, like I said, given the fact that I was playing somebody so different from myself, that I think I've never done anything that is so separate from me.
I was going to say, actually, yeah. I think if there's any sort of a role that really does justice to your caliber as an actor, I mean, you've been amazing, don't get me wrong, in all the works you've done. But I think if there's one sort of role in particular which really brings out the colorfulness and the different shades in you as an actor, I think it probably would be A Suitable Boy as well.
I would totally agree with that. And I think that, after I've been now working for 14, 15 years now, and it's amazing that you get a chance to play something that suddenly would open up aspects to your personality and to your acting ability that nobody has ever seen. So whether it is the flamboyance, whether it is the bitchiness or the humor, I think these are three things that people would not necessarily associate with me. People would usually come to me for drama, for intensity, for Tu Hai Mera Sunday was the first film actually that gave me something to even play with in terms of being fun or being light. But this has suddenly, I feel it will open up many new dimensions of characters that probably people wouldn't imagine me to be.
Yes, I agree with that. But as they say, dera hai durust hai, right? I think sometimes it's a journey, and I think A Suitable Boy has come to you probably at the right time, at the right place as well. But I think a question which I asked Tanya, when I spoke with her for the series, and often when we talk about doing projects in the West or doing international projects like, I mentioned as Midnight's Children and A Suitable Boy, but there's often that notion that someone's made it, into the sort of mainstream if they do such projects. I mean, what's your whole stance and view on that? Is that necessarily true?
Well, more and more so, I think not, because everything is digital and everything is seen across the internet. So now that distance is no longer real in terms of something. I think maybe back in the day, I suppose, even a film like Midnight's Children, it was a film that had a release all over the world in a certain way, and was, so therefore it was different. But today, everything that is accessible online. I mean, even Midnight's Children, you can watch it online now, so you can watch it anywhere in the world. And so I think it's become different. It's opened up. Today, I think people are curious and interested in projects that are indigenous to a certain place or kind of localized, if it is interesting in terms of content and if it gets picked up. I mean, even shows, for example, like Fauda and all existed for a very long time, and then they got picked up. They were made for the local audience, and they got picked up because they were good shows. So I think that there's a lot of that is happening today, and I think all those boundaries and lines are much more blur now, because you no longer have, you could have something that is made entirely for one country and then it becomes a success and every other country sees it. Or you could have things that are done collaboratively between countries as well. So I think it's much more fluid in terms of this kind of geographical placement or regional placement. So I think the international and national or regional now no longer makes a difference. What makes a difference is how good your project is, and how much scope it has, depending on which platform it's on, to reach a larger audience.
Yes, very well answered, and great that we sort of have this. But I think you as well, Shahana, you've been a part of projects which are very unconventional and diverse as well. Has this been something you actively look out for in choosing the ventures, or is it just a style of work that comes your way?
I mean, I suppose it's a bit of both. I won't say I design it, but I follow my instinct in terms of choosing things. And I think as an actor, what interests me is things that I would like to watch. And for me, it's of course to do with the character I play, but it is to do with the larger narrative and the larger story. And I think what has served me, and I've been lucky and I'm grateful for it, but it has also carved the way for more similar things, is that I have done things that I felt resonated with me as an artist and as a human being, and saying no to things or making lesser compromises, so to speak. I've had maybe the liberty and luxury to do that I've got the things and had a choice of things where I could say no. And I would like to say that there are moments in my life when I've not had as much work as I would like to, or as much money as I would like to, but I still have some weird, almost compulsion to say no to things that don't resonate with me. Yes. And I think that's the only thing that is almost like a stubborn way that has inadvertently made me create a body of work that I am proud of, that I am happy about, that has given me a certain kind of selective but coherent journey. And I think that's the only thing. So I remember hearing from a lot of artists that what makes your career is the things you say no to, not necessarily the things you say yes to. And I do stand by that. I think it's always a tough decision to say no to things, because as an artist, especially as an actor, because it's not in your control. A project comes to you. You don't create a project. You can't sit and today you can create a project, you can make things, but that's if you want to take on that big headache. It's a much bigger. The role of an actor is meant to be selected, to be chosen for a project. That is how it's meant to work, right? Or any other technician for that matter. So in that sense, if you have very little control, and so oftentimes people, one is tempted to think that, okay, maybe I should just do the work, maybe I should be seen more, maybe I should make the money, I don't know if I'll get something later on or not. And I think somehow weirdly, the way my journey is being, luckily, touch wood, that I have worked consistently and constantly, and maybe I started very early and I consistently and kept working and didn't really see major downfalls. So I think the stubbornness to continue to make those choices based on what really made sense to me at a soul level became important. And I think that's what's kind of made me choose the way I've chosen.
And you know what? I'm just really curious to know, actually. So what sort of projects would you actually say no to? If I was a director or a producer approaching you with a script, what would be something you wouldn't want to do or wouldn't feel comfortable in doing?
Well, I think outright it would be things that are against my politics in life. I mean, I don't mean just politics in terms of, you know, political agenda, that also, but definitely things like, I mean, if there was a, for example, a homophobic film, or a film that shows misogyny in any way, or a film that has very extreme right-wing politics, or if there are certain things that personally I don't resonate with. So if the story of the film is saying something that goes against, or violence, you
Mm,
know, or if it's something that propagates violence or justifies violence, things like this, perhaps, you know, at an ideological level, things that don't resonate with me, I
yeah,
probably wouldn't. But to be fair, I've never also seen those kind of films, and I've never been offered those kind of films. Perhaps
right.
that link doesn't happen naturally. But the other kind of things, I think it's more again to do with a kind of synergy of things. I mean, it's to
Mm,
do with, I don't think there's a blanket thing that I would say no to specifically like that, but
mm,
it's to do with the way it's written. I mean, you could have a great idea, but if you come with a poor script, I will not do it, because I know that it will, in my mind, I see where it will go when it's finally done, and it will fall short despite its good intentions. And so then I don't, because it's anyway a gamble. You can make the best possible film, and then the circumstances of its coming out and how the people respond to it can be completely at loggerheads with its success. So, you know, like, you
yeah.
don't have that control. What you have control over is what you feel instinctively is something that you want to back, that you
Mm.
want to be a part of, that you would like to see come out, and then what fate it has and how it goes is another matter.
Yes, I think we were also talking a bit about the whole international front of things, and I believe there's often a chase to gain mainstream traction rather than mastering one's craft as an actor. You know, not just in Bollywood, but in any industry as a whole. Even in any non-filmy industry as well. So you've never actually been in that race. I mean, from the sort of response you gave to the question that I asked you about the international exposure, you've never been in that race to particularly gain commercial traction, have you?
No, I think I but you know, I think it depends. I always say this, that, you know, it's very important to be clear about what makes you do what you do, and you can have different reasons for it, and none of them have any value judgment attached to it. I feel if there is anybody who wishes to be an actor to be famous, perfectly fine, and that if that is your ambition and that is what you are seeking, that's perfectly fine. Why just actor? If as a director, writer, cinema, whatever, if as an artist your idea is to be known and to be famous and to be recognized, and if
Oh,
that is what is drawing you, then you will make certain choices based on that. For me personally, I think it is the journey of making a film. There is a reason I don't like attention specifically, which is why I also probably I can't I'm not comfortable doing stage, for example.
right.
Besides the fact that I may not necessarily be that great because I've done very little of it, but even if I were to be fantastic at it by some stroke of luck, it's not something that I feel comfortable. I don't like being in the spotlight. But when you're making a film, it's a
Mm,
whole bunch of people doing something collaboratively. It's almost like doing a rehearsal,
mm,
even though you're actually shooting, but what you're doing is essentially collaborating with these amazing energies, which is what it was like even on Suitable. There was such amazing talent in terms of the co-actors, of course, and the rest of the team, you know, the cinematographer, the art direction, the costumes, the hair and makeup. I mean, it was just like buzzing with this kind of magical energy. And for me, that's the excitement of being an actor. That's why I wanted to be an actor. That's what made me, because I'm a team player, whether it was sports, whether it is games, you know, like indoor game, whatever it is, I'm a team player. So for
yeah.
me, it's about the team. And I would love to do a commercial film, but that's not, it has to work for me at all these levels. And I
Mm,
think I don't work for them. That's the
ah,
problem.
mm,
That,
mm,
you know, or the other way around. I mean, tomorrow maybe I could be offered a script that is commercial, but it just doesn't make sense to me in terms of the way the script is or the character is, and then I wouldn't do it. So
mm.
for me, it's very important that my pleasure of doing my job, which is the collaboration, has to make sense. what the success of it or failure of it is another level and is the next step, and there's so little that we have in our control to determine that. So I'm not concerned with that. I mean, I always give this example. If somebody were to say tomorrow films are not going to be screened to the public, it's going to be, films are only going to be made for the film fraternity, screened amongst ourselves and made for ourselves with no great profits, I would still do it,
Mm.
because my joy of doing cinema comes from that collaborative team effort, not the attention that comes from it. Though of course it's nice to be appreciated, though it is nice to be told that you've done a good job,
Yeah,
but I'm not seeking a following of millions. That's not
sure.
necessarily, that's not what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, that's not the be all and end all of your career. That's not what's driving you.
That
Right.
comes with actually so much more of a burden and responsibility also in so many ways.
Yeah, it's true actually. But I think it's great you've sort of mentioned that as well, because I feel because of the digital platform and the fact that we're seeing a lot more fresh talents as well emerging, and I think it's great that we're getting to see fresh talents finally getting um, that representation they deserve as well, and that sort of platform. So how much of a blessing has it been, do you think, the digital platform? Do you think, had the digital platform not have been there, do you think fresh talents who are completely raw, completely new, would have been perhaps sidelined a little bit had this digital revolution not have happened?
I mean, it's difficult to say. It was changing already. I would say, even for somebody like me to have survived in this industry in some sense or the other, it is a sign of the fact that there was still some kind of a change that existed. But yes, definitely the digital platform, what it's done is it has increased the volume of work. And when you increase volume of work, you have the freedom also to then choose. I mean, you can't, how many, there are only that many stars. How many stars will you work with? How many of them are going to work in how many shows? So you're then forced to, and also in terms of, honestly, it's also a budgetary kind of thing. The structure of the monetary financial structure of a show is such that it's very difficult to, I think, accommodate a star in it. So that also forces people to then look at performance. And then you're trying to get somebody to invest in years of a character. So you need
Mm,
people who can perform it well as well, and who
mm,
can sustain it for that many years. So
right.
across the board, if you see, even wherever television actors, they were not the mainstream film actors. They were always new people that were found. That has
So,
always been the thing, because something about the length and the fact that it is meant to be over years that these characters are supposed to build, if things go well,
mm,
makes people find new talent, or makes people find lesser known or
mm,
unknown talent. So I think that's definitely, it's been a boom, but I would say not just for actors. I think, I always think about, again, like, it's a general state of vibration in any world, in any company, in any industry. And when everybody is working, technicians, actors, light boys, everybody is constantly working, because there's so much work right now. The vibration is that of people who are satisfied, people who are motivated, people who are,
content. Mm,
actively churning. So the quality of, even in terms of the content, you have people thinking out of the box. There's much more interesting work coming out, and I think we're going to see a kind of shift in content in a way that is coming from this energy of people being busy and feeling satisfied, and not like wondering where their next meal is going to come from, or when their next paycheck is going to come from, or are they going to get work or get depressed. And so that kind of have feeling of lack, when it's there, it creates a different kind of content and a different kind of, and when you have the feeling of uh, you know being busy and active, it creates a different kind of creative reality, I feel.
yes, yes, absolutely. But I think also, for many, many years now, I think cinema has so much onus on glamour, and in that whole sort of race again, so to speak, that whole essence of acting sort of disappears. The craft, the general love of the craft in particular, sort of diminishes a little bit as well. So what can we do collaboratively as part of the media, as artists, as actors? What can we do to maintain the craft of acting as the central focus each time?
I mean, I think that it's already happening to some extent. I think just exposing ourselves to more and more kinds of things. And today, like we were discussing earlier, the fact that we get to watch an Israeli show, a Mexican show, a remote perhaps Filipino show, God knows, there are things that one is being exposed to, which is authentic and new and different, and at the same time is universal. And I
Mm.
think watching things across the board, across different cultures, across different countries, of various kinds, be it independent, commercial, mid-ground, all of it, is also what helps create an audience that is demanding more. And when the audience is more educated in terms of whatever they're taking in, the more you see, the more you're refining your taste of things, right?
Yes.
and and that itself will make you demand more. There is a reason why there's been perhaps a spate of failures in these big budget blockbuster superstar films, because perhaps they were still leaning on the fact that people will come and watch it and enjoy it because it has a certain person in it.
Yeah,
But
true.
what the audiences are no longer living that reality. They are watching things from all over the world. You're watching and commercial stuff as well, but things that have more meat in it, that have more content in it. So the demand becomes more. Then you have that much time, and there's that much content and material out there, so you're competing. Like it's getting people to get your writing better, get your stuff together. Otherwise there's more than enough to watch. I don't have to sit and watch just Indian content. I can watch Icelandic films if I want to.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
you have to like challenge, you have to make it worthwhile for me to watch it. And I think
Mm.
that's what's hopefully changing. There's more focus on writing different things, on creating more, perhaps more. And I feel like all kinds of films should exist. I think my biggest grouse as a person who grew up watching Bollywood and has loved Bollywood is that today it's been a really long time since I saw a really good masala Bollywood film,
I
because they've
agree.
forgotten how to do this as well.
Yes, and do you know what also, Shahana, as well? Sorry, if I can also add, is the fact that I think some of them, um, we kind of grow up, and the films, the commercial films that you used to love, you kind of realize that some of the stuff that they were putting out was actually very, very problematic. Very stalkerish, very stalker culture, very regressive and sexist as well. And I think sometimes when you see that and you just realize, what have I been growing up watching? It kind of shatters that whole fantasy that was once created as a child as well. Have you kind of had that moment too?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that one ends up watching again and being like, ooh, okay, one. I mean, I think some part of you always even felt it while you were watching it, that it was weird. But we were so used to thinking, oh, it's in a film. It doesn't really matter. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think, but that's changing, and I feel like that's a good thing that it's changing across the board in terms of just representation of all kinds, and just focusing on, I think the minute you start truly trying to tell a story, you will start focusing on the authenticity of a character as
Right.
well, or questioning certain other aspects of what they're saying or not saying, not just saying things just for a comic relief, or not just creating scenes that are funny for no reason, or that are titillating for no reason. I mean, there has to be a coherence in what is being said, done, and expressed.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree with that. And I also think that because of lockdown, I think the audience's appetite for cinema and entertainment has changed as well. But I think moving on, Shahana, I wanted to sort of speak to you a bit about more about yourself actually. I mean, Rock On was an icebreaker for you and for your career. But had Debbie not have happened, in what way do you think things would have been different for you?
It's difficult to imagine. I mean, if I were to give a, just from the top of my head, off the top of my head, I would imagine that if Rock On didn't happen, I I think that Well, I don't know. It's difficult to say because Rock On was the third film that came out, but I shot quite a few films before that. I shot Firak before that. I shot Tera Kya Hoga Johnny before that. So I had already worked, and I had worked with Nasir, of course. My first film was with Nasir, which was Yoon Hota To Kya Hota. So I think I had already got exposure to the kind of people I wanted to work with, whether it was Anandita, Sudhir Mishra, Nasir, Ratna. I'd worked with people. Of
That's
that
good.
time that were already my kind of cinema and my kind of world. So I'm hoping that it would have still um, continued in that way. It would have probably been slower, and maybe definitely what Rock On did is elevated me to getting bigger parts.
Mm.
So what would have perhaps happened is that I would have continued to play smaller parts until whichever film would have come out that would have been a success, and thereafter I would have probably got a bit of that attention. But
Mm.
I think what Rock On did was just that it suddenly I came out of nowhere. People knew who I was, and then after that it was just easier access to things. So, yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, I think that was very well summarized, to be very honest. But I think you're right as well. I think you also began with theatre as well in the very initial stages of your career. So I think having worked on theatre, which is a very raw medium, it's very spontaneous and it's very disciplined as well. So surrounding yourself and working around that sort of atmosphere, that must have really, really formed the sort of vision you had for acting as well from then as well, right?
I mean, I think I always knew that I wanted to act, and I think film is probably what in my heart of hearts, I knew I wanted to do films. But growing up in Delhi, being completely disconnected from a film world, I mean, I didn't think that it was even remotely a possibility.
Hmm.
So the idea was that, you do theater, you see how it goes. I just want to act, so we'll see how it goes. But
Hmm.
the minute I did, I think I only acted in actually one play. I was doing
Hmm.
backstage and I was part of production houses, which gave me a lot of, I mean, we did workshops, we did things. So, of course, it helped me grow as an actor and learn and watch people. And I was surrounded by so much talent that I could absorb and take advantage of. But the minute I started doing film, which was with Yoon Hota To Kya Hota being the first, and subsequently, 2-3 films happened back to back. Then there was Honeymoon Travels, and then Rubaru happened immediately after, and then what happened is I very quickly realized that film was the medium that suited me. Like I
Hmm.
said, it allows you to be
Hmm.
invisible when you're working, and when people are watching you, you're not there. So
Yeah.
you're not performing to an audience. You're not being watched. I don't like being watched. It makes me
Ah,
very awkward.
right. Okay, so that explains why you like film.
Definitely did help to.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, I
Sorry.
think there was a bit of a network lagging there. So you were saying it
Yeah.
definitely helped you to.
It definitely helped me to build myself and grow and create that understanding of the craft with myself, because I was also very young. So um, and I always say that I kind of learned everything on the job, and I've learned because I had really good people around me
Yeah.
right from the start. So that really helped in allowing me to really absorb as much as I could as a sponge. So
Mm, yes, and I'm really glad that it has, and it's wonderful to sort of see you reach the stage where you have. But on a final note, Shahana, you've been very busy on the digital space as well recently. I believe you have a work coming up called Begums, which is coming on Netflix as well, and that sounds really really interesting. So tell me a bit about that.
So Bombay Begums is a show about 5 women in different phases of their lives and different ages, and they kind of have interconnected lives, but essentially exploring their lives with a backdrop and their struggles
Right.
personally and professionally, but essentially dealing with their outer and inner world parallel to each other. So, there is Adya, who plays the youngest girl, who's, about 13, 14, 12 or something.
Mm,
And then there is, 23-year-old played by Plabita. And there is my character, who's in her mid to late 30s, who's going through her own struggles. Then there's Amrita Subhash playing another character, and then there is Pooja Bhatt playing the slightly character. So there's a really great cast. It was really great writing also, and the showrunner and one of the directors is Alankita Srivastav. So
wow.
It's been a really wonderful collaboration, and it was quite an intense project, but it was so fulfilling and so absolutely delightful to. Like I'm very lucky to again get to play such a fabulous character, and the fact that it's a series, I get to explore her and be her more and more, and also somebody very different from me, who I am personally. So it was a challenge in certain ways for me to play that character as well. So I'm looking forward to that. That hopefully that should be coming out sometime either end of this year, early next year.
Wow. Well, I think it's wonderful to sort of see you play such characters. I think seeing you in A Suitable Boy definitely made me very proud and very excited as well.
Thank you.
To see you play such a beautiful character and you getting that space to really display your craft and your passion for acting. And I think it's just wonderful. And may you keep conquering, Shahana. Thank you so much for joining me on Filme Shilmy for today's conversation. And it was good to catch up with you after such a long time. So wishing you all the very best.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Really.
Cool. Take care. Thank you, Shahana.
Thanks a ton.
Bye.
See you.